you have what it takes to survive? Imagine if you could only take a couple things with you to survive in the vast wilderness. Well, I accumulated up 5 skills that could assist you if you plan on going into the forest. But without further ado, let's get into the first skill. The first skill is shelter building. If it was raining and you had no shelter, you would die in 3 hours. Yeah, sure, you could find a cave or another natural shelter, but being able to build your own is a necessary skill. In one of my previous videos, I went in depth on how to build a shelter, but to sum it up, I made a tripod, laid a large log on it, laid sticks against it as ribs, then I laid bark and debris on it. Then I laid down dry grass as bedding. Remember, there are lots of different natural shelters you could find and make, and even something like a tent will always protect you from the rain, so use what you have. But that being said, having shelter is #1 priority, as protection from the wind and rain in the cold will draw the line between life and death. The next skill is fire making. Fire is an underrated aspect to survival, as it will get you cooked food, purified water, and warmth. To make this fire, I gathered up some fat wood from a stump. Fat wood is formed when resin goes into an injured part of a tree as a healing mechanism in coniferous trees. This forms dense wood impregnated with a highly flammable resin that is perfect for fire starting in windy conditions. You can also use birch bark, dry grass, or some fibers and charcloth. Some common and some of my favorite fire setups are the log cabin, which is done like this, and the lean-to fire, which is made like this. With the fat wood, you're going to want to make shavings and scrapings with the back of your knife. Make sure you have plenty of twigs and kindling at ready because you don't want to be scrambling around for firewood when you are trying to start your fire. So just more than what you would need, really. Now set the shavings alight with a match, lighter, or ferro rod, then add your twigs, then progressively get bigger. Batoning wood can also grant you small dry kindling if no dry sticks are around. So in summary, fire gets you cooked food, hot drinks, purified water, warmth, and light, which leads us into the next skill, which is water purification. Boiling it is by far the most reliable way to purify water, but there are other ways too. But if you're going to boil it, you're going to want to bring it to a decent boil for about a minute. This should kill any germs or parasites in the water. With something simple like iodine tablets, you just drop them in and shake it about, which is very convenient, but if you don't have any, you're going to want to know how to purify it with fire, which brings us back to firecraft. Knowing how to build a fire and purify water with it will again be the difference between life or death. If the water has stuff in it, simply filter the gunk out with a piece of cloth or handkerchief. Coming in at our 4th skill is first aid. From carrying things like bandages and knowing how to use them, to knowing CPR and other life-saving techniques. First aid is a necessity if you want to save yourself or others from a medical or life-threatening predicament. CPR is performed by placing your hands like this and using your whole body to do compressions that go into the chest about 2.4 inches. Do this in 30 compression segments, and between each segment, check if the person is breathing. You can also do rescue breaths if compressions aren't working. Overall, brush up on basic first aid before going on a big trip, or just to know for everyday life. The 5th and final skill is a little anticlimactic, I must admit, but it's a skill nonetheless, and that is wood processing. You see, you can't just rely on twigs and little sticks to sustain a fire overnight. Imagine if you had a saw and an axe and had no idea how to use them. That would be quite the situation, wouldn't it? Anyway, splitting wood is easy. Just make sure you have your legs spaced apart nicely so that if you miss, you don't cut off your toes. And it's as easy as just hitting it. When smaller pieces start forming, you may be tempted to do this, but if you take a stick and hold the log with it while you do that, you not only eliminate the risk of chopping your fingers off, you get a more accurate split. You can also baton wood. Just take your knife and drive it through the wood with a stick. This can be helpful for making kindling or making feather sticks. And that's about it for this video. Peace.